Welcome back to the Breakout Creatives Project. Today, I'd like to tell you a story. I'd like to tell you a story about how these figures, the leader, the artist, the prophet, and the mystic, came to be in the human endeavor, how they took on the roles they did, and what importance that story holds for us today. I'll give you the broad outlines of the story, and we'll be filling this story in constantly as we talk about each of the breakout creative figures going forward. The story begins about 50,000 years ago. Yes, only 50,000 years ago. Some part of this species, some people in this species, made a momentous decision. They said, let's get out of here. These creatures were located in the heart of Africa. A drought assailed the land. The habitat dried up and could no longer sustain their people and the groups of people that are around them. And one or several figures among them arose and said, let's strike out and go to new lands. The figures that gave rise to this exodus we call the leader. And we mean by the leader that figure that somehow or other feels that he or she and the people around him or her have enough energy to strike out in new directions, to move out of their accustomed worlds, take on something new, and live in a way that constantly deals with what newness and freshness and strangeness the world holds in store for them. Now, one of the most amazing things discovered by anthropologists and geneticists is that this world of the leader went on practically uninterrupted for close to 35,000 years. 15,000 years ago, these bands that were perfectly nomadic, raiding one land or another, taking over one environment or another, started to settle down, started to live in one place, occupy one place, understand how that place worked. The figure that gave rise to understanding not only that place, but how it is that humans could learn, how humans could strike up a relationship with this new environment such that they were able to see new ways to live. That figure was the figure that gave rise to what we call the artist. And what we mean by that is this. It's not that this figure created beautiful things, although in the caves of BoC and in artifacts that we see carved out of stone that still remain from this era, they did create beautiful things. But what was really important is these people were depicting great forces in the universe that they felt humans were able to tap such that they could step into the world, step into living in a new way. Then, it was only around 6,000 years ago or so that this great power evolved to the next step. And that is, the artists of the world set forth things such as symbols and myths. They created narratives about how the world was created, how it came to be, and what humans accomplished by living in these worlds with the gods that they named. Well, then people started noticing that language itself, the words themselves had power. The words themselves had meaning. This great discovery gave rise, especially in the Mesopotamian world, to the prophet figure. The prophet figure is the one who felt the same kind of sense of power and urgency that the artist did, but located that power in the word. And also felt that these great powers were here in the Word to tell humans about how to live. So first we had the great prophets in the Mesopotamian region, in the books of Israel that we call the Bible now. But also this form took on another dimension, and that is the process of reason, where words connected not only moral commands and not only conveyed myths about how the world was created, but also had a structure and a flow and a logic to them that tied our world together such that it made sense and such that we could make sense of the world. Of course, this is the great discovery of the Greeks, and philosophy is the great tradition that emerged out of this great form. And then there's one more evolution that took place. A mere 800 years ago, Beguine mystics, women who left their pastoral settings, came into the cities to teach this newly rising, burgeoning world of trade and commerce and urban life that the human endeavor was not something that was static and given for all time, locked in a box that was preordained, but rather it was this human endeavor itself that sensed the universal, that sensed the great powers. But why is this story important? Well, for one thing, it tells us that the human endeavor is changing. It does change. And humans themselves can recognize these powers that give rise to great and new vistas of our role and our place and our living in the universe. And that process is going on today. It's alive among us. And it takes each and every one of these figures to be able to accomplish what a new epic, what heralds a new epic, what a new epic brings into being. And we can realize that these figures are alive in us and that we have a role and we can step into this great process of making the human endeavor more expansive, more encompassing for humans, all our creatures, the earth, and maybe beyond. Thank you.